1, 2, 1, 2. Present, the head of the government, presidents and the leaders of the youth organizations and the liberal unions, brothers and sisters. Today, I look at your faces and I look at the faces of the sons of my country. They are full of sorrow and pain. I look at the eyes of the children of Syria. I don't see an innocent smile or an innocent laugh. I don't also see playing, which puts smiles on their faces. I don't see toys. I hold on to the hands of the elderly. I find that the elderly are praying for their sons or for their daughters or for their grandchildren. We meet today and the difficulties and sufferings are going on throughout Syria. There is no room for happiness in any corner of the nation. Security has become absent from the streets and alleys of the country. We meet today at the time where mothers have lost their children, their most beloved children. And families have also lost people who provide for them, and also children who have become orphans, brothers and sisters who have left one another as martyrs or refugees or missing people. And if all this pain is a black cloud over the country, this is not enough in order to compensate for the loss of the beloved or the retrieval of security and stability or providing bread, water, medicine, fuel throughout the country. Because of the pain, we must also have hope, and from the depth of the sufferings we also see solutions. The black cloud is preventing the sun from rising. However, we also have rain and hope, the hope that something will come about when rain falls. These feelings and this sympathy of pain and sorrow and challenge and determination, insistence is great energy. Syria will not come out of its crisis except if this energy is transformed into a comprehensive national movement which saves the country from an attack which we have never remembered. We have never remembered such an attack throughout the history of this region. This national movement is the only way to seal the deep wounds which have harmed the social fabric and were about to rip our society apart. And it is the only factor which is able to help Syria and to bring about society once again and ethics in Syria to rise with Syria in all factors. Every citizen is responsible and is able of giving something, even if it's something small or limited in his view. The nation is for everyone. We all defend the nation. Everyone defends the nation in the way which he can, with the means he possesses. The idea is defense, and the stance is defense, and building is defense, and also preserving the possessions and assets of the state is defense. The attacks on the nation, against all the people of a nation, every person who is aware knows very clearly that the negative or waiting for others to solve the problem is against the country and will drive the country towards the abyss. And not participating in the solutions means going backwards, not going forwards, going towards reaching a solution and exiting the crisis. And because many people fell into the trap that the situation is a confrontation between the opposition and the authority. So they stood away and they are silent. Now we must turn once again and focus on the real situation today. The confrontation today is between the nation and its enemies, between the people and the murderous criminals, the murderous killers, the people and their bread and their daily way of life, and those who deny all of this for the people. The situation of stability and security which we used to have, and the expansion or spread of terrorism and fear amongst the people, the killing of civilians and innocent, takes away the blessings from our country. They killed the experts. They tried to kill the intellectuals in order to expand or spread ignorance. They also attacked the infrastructure in order to increase the sufferings of our people. They prevented the children from going to their schools in order to destroy the future of the people and to express their ignorance. They also took away the electricity and the communications and the fuel, and they left the elderly and the youth suffering under the cold of winter without medicine, without any medical assistance. This shows their brutality. We also saw their stealings, saw how they stole the wealth and stole all the daily goods of the people so that the people would hunger. Is this a confrontation over power, or is it a confrontation between the nation and its enemies? Is it a confrontation over power, or is it revenge against the people who didn't give those terrorists and those killers the main say in order to divide Syria and divide our society? They are the enemy of the people, and the enemy of the people are the enemy of Allah, and the enemies of Allah will be in hell on Judgment Day. At the beginning, they wanted it to be an alleged revolution, but the people rose against them and they prevented them. They denied them the social support which they wanted to impose by the media and by the arms. And when they failed, they went to the next stage. And hence they took away their masks, and they showed the real weapons which they were using ever since the beginning. They used it hidden before, then they showed it in public, and they began with their attempts to occupy cities. However, they also tried to occupy other cities. They struck with brutality, but the only thing, or the more they struck, the more the people, with their vigilance and their perseverance, discovered their real identity. So they decided to take revenge against the people, wherever they may be, without any differentiation. They call it a revolution. However, it has nothing to do with revolutions from any way whatsoever. A revolution needs intellectuals. Revolutions are based on ideas. Where are the intellectuals, the thinkers? Who is the thinker of this revolution? Revolutions need leaders. Who knows the leader of this revolution? Revolutions are also based on education and thinking, not on ignorance. Revolutions are based on pushing the country forwards, not to take the country backwards centuries, to bless the country, not to deny electricity. Revolution is for the people. A revolution is not the revolution of those who come from outside so that they come to the country. It is a revolution for the interests of the people, not against the interests of the people. So please, is this a revolution? Are these people revolutionaries? They are a group of criminals. So behind all this, the Takfiris, the extremists, were working behind the lines by the bombing attacks and by the mass killings. They put the gangs in front, but they supported them from behind, the extremists. And the army and the people, they were one hand against the killers and rejected their killings. And as this continued, they approached collapse, the extremists. Then the extremists found another only way. They resorted to fighting in the back lines, and they used the procedure and practice of killings. And because the idea of extremism and takfiris is something new, they had to import it from outside, whether it be individuals or ideas. And here the equation changed. The terrorists and the takfiris, who have the thinking of Al-Qaeda and call themselves jihadists, they came from everywhere. They lead the terrorist operations on the ground, and the armed figures or armed elements, they went to the back lines as people who assist in kidnappings and also sabotage. They are servants and humiliating spies, working for the takfiris and the killers who don't speak any language except the language of slaughtering and cutting up bodies. We, my dear brothers, we are fighting against these people, and a lot of them are not Syrians. They came because of false understandings. false slogans which they call jihad, but this is very, very far away from jihad or Islam, what they do. What is sure and certain is that what we are confronting, most of what we are confronting are those terrorists who carry the thinking of Al-Qaeda, and I think that most of you know how this kind of terrorism was sponsored 3 decades ago in Afghanistan by the West and by Arab money. After their mission ended and the USSR was dismantled and they left in Afghanistan, they began to strike in everywhere. They struck the Arab world, they struck the Islamic world, and they also struck the West. They tried to get rid of them in Afghanistan. They tried to get rid of them in different ways after the invasion of Iraq. However, this terrorism was stubborn and it continued to spread, and it began to take its place inside the Western societies themselves. So these events came in the Arab world and especially in Syria, and this was an opportunity for these groups, for the West actually, for the West to take all of these terrorists, or the highest number possible of these terrorists, to take them to Syria or send them to Syria, to make Syria the land of jihad. And so hence they would get rid of two annoying enemies at the same time, get rid of the terrorists and also at the same time weaken Syria, which is a nuisance and which bothers the West. There is an organization which is related to terrorism. About 1 or 2 months ago, there was a report about the decrease of the terrorist operations in general, especially in East Asia and Central Asia. Yes, because most of the terrorists came to Syria from these countries, and some of them come from Western countries. We'd like to say these terrorists entering into any area and entering into Syria, this is something dangerous from a security perspective, and that's something normal. However, it's not impossible to put an end to them, to force them to leave when we have the courage and the will. However, what is more dangerous is the idea, their ideals entering, and they're entering the society. When such ideas and thinking enter into this society, society becomes something which is full of harm. Society becomes altered and ugly. If we don't deal with this in all perspectives, we must rise above all our differences and divisions in this perspective. Otherwise, we will put our children and our grandchildren, we will put them in blood for generations and generations. And the Syria, which we know won't exist, not geographically, but the society which we knew before. However, this doesn't deny that such thinking leads to sedition and also destroys geography and destroys any meaning for any society or any state. So this is a big responsibility. We must all unite in order to confront this. However, there are also other far-reaching aspects related to the crisis, not only internal. Internally, it's very clear what they want. However, regionally, there are some who are trying to divide Syria, and there are others who are trying to weaken Syria. Some of them are providing the murderers with money and weapons, and some are providing them with support. Enemy countries based upon occupation and hostility, which we don't find this strange, and other neighboring countries are trying to weaken Syria and practice hegemony against Syria, and other countries are searching for a certain position in history, so they wrote it with the blood of the Syrian people and the Arab people. However, the Syrian people are stronger, and the Syrians promised them that they won't succeed. Internationally, everybody knows that Syria was and will always be free, sovereign, and will not accept bowing down and dictations. And this is what bothered the West and is still bothering the West, and so they tried to take advantage of internal situation to take Syria away from the regional political equation, to put an end to this annoying role and to strike the idea of resistance and to transform us into people who follow their orders, similar to the situation elsewhere in other countries. However, the international community is not only the West. Many of the countries of the world, first and foremost Russia and China, together with the BRICS countries and many other countries, reject the meddling in the affairs of a country and destabilizing the region based upon their principles and their interests and their intent on the freedoms of the people in deciding their own fate. And so we express all our thanks to these countries, first and foremost Russia and China and Iran and all of the countries which stood in support of Syria against any attempts to intervene in the internal affairs. These countries won't see from the Syrian people except admiration, and we owe it to them. We recognize what they have done for us. In light of all of this, in light of everything I said in this introduction, we cannot speak about a solution without taking into consideration these elements: the internal situation, the regional card, and also the international perspective. And any measure which won't take this into consideration won't be a real solution and won't have any effect whatsoever. Let's begin internally. The disagreement, although some people believe that it was between those in power and opposition at the beginning. However, if some people believe that the confrontation was between opposition and the ruling party, such a disagreement in the modern world is about how to build the state, not how to destroy the state. Is how to make progress and further develop the state, not to take the state backwards tens of years. The relationship between the opposition and those in power is internal. However, when part of the internal opposition is politicized and related to the outside, then the confrontation becomes between the inside, the internal, and the outside, between the independence of the nation and the hegemony of the nation, between remaining as sovereign and free and being occupied by foreign powers politically. And so hence the situation is transformed into defending the nation as a whole, and everybody unites to defend against the foreign assault, which uses some internal tools. So when we say foreign or foreign opposition, we don't mean the place where these people live. We mean the place where their hearts are. Where are their hearts? Where are their minds? Who are they attached to? What they rely on? And most important of all, their financing. This is what we mean foreignly, whether they live inside Syria or outside. There are people outside Syria who live outside Syria, however, they are defending their country. Yes, gentlemen. It's not opposition against those in power, not an army against armed groups and killers only. Now we are up against a war with the full meaning of the word. We now are confronting a brutal foreign aggression, and such wars are more destructive and more dangerous than the conventional wars because they don't use tools to destroy us. They also use ourselves, use Syrians to strike us. They use Syria and they use Syrians and they try to take advantage of us in order to destroy our territories, and they try to do this by using Syrian hands themselves. And in such a war, we defend the country. At the same time, we take up all the necessary reforms which are necessary for all of us. But this might not change the nature of the war. However, it will strengthen us, strengthen our unity, and further enhance our immunity against this war. Some people believe that these reforms will solve the problem. No, it is one factor. However, it will not solve the problem. So reforms without security is like security without reforms. Nothing can succeed, not one can succeed without the other. This is what we said and we still say. And those who said that Syria chose the security solution are not listening and not seeing. We always said time and again that reforms and policy on the one hand and eliminating terrorism on the other hand. And those who try and turn around the truth, we say that when someone is subject to an assault or an attack and they defend themselves, what do we say? We say they defended themselves or they chose a security solution. No, we say that they defended themselves. So why, when the state defends the people and when the people defend the nation, why do they say that we chose a security solution? Defending the nation is a duty. It's nothing which is up for debate. Defending the nation is a legal, constitutional, legitimate duty, and it is the only choice. There is no other option, which is to defend ourselves. So, if we have chosen the security solution, and if we strive for this ever since the opening days, this doesn't mean that we don't defend them. Or I repeat, actually, if we chose the political solution from the beginning, this doesn't mean that we don't defend ourselves. And if we chose the political solution from the very beginning, this means that we need a partner who is capable and who is willing to go ahead with a political process and to enter into a dialogue process on the national level. And if we chose the political solution and if we didn't see any partner, this doesn't mean that we don't want a political solution. It means that we haven't seen a partner over the previous period. More clearly, if someone wants to get married and looks for a partner and didn't find this partner, or hasn't found anyone who accepts him as a partner, this doesn't mean that he doesn't want to get married. It means he hasn't found a partner. This is the situation. We haven't found a partner. From the beginning, we have been speaking about a political solution, so any talk about the Syrian state choosing the security solution is not true. It was never raised any day. No official in the state said that we chose a security solution. We never rejected the political solution. We adopted this solution ever since day one, by dialogue. And we extended our hand to all those who have a national political project which pushes Syria forward. However, with who do we hold dialogue? With people who have an extremist ideology, who don't believe except in the language of blood and killing and terrorism? Do we hold dialogue with gangs which are given orders by the outside, are part of the strangers and foreigners and their dictations? They tell them not to hold dialogue because they know that dialogue will prevent their plans from being fulfilled, their plans of weakening Syria and getting rid of Syria, especially some regional countries. And the officials in these regional countries believe that Syria exiting this crisis will put an end to their political future after they drowned their own people in lies and spended the resources of their countries to support terrorism. They can no longer justify their hostile policies and their involvement in bloodshed and killing civilians. Do we hold dialogue with dummies, which their roles were played or given to them by the West? Do we hold a dialogue with those who did this, those who played such a role? Do we hold dialogue with the slaves? No, we hold dialogue with their masters. With respect to the West is of colonialism, and it is the first and foremost power practice a policy of division. They are the ones which block the road to a dialogue because they have gotten used to giving dictations, and we have gotten used to independence and sovereignty and free decision making because the humiliated now have gotten used to this. We cannot, however, do this. And so, those who speak about a political solution only are disregarding these facts. They are either ignorant of the facts or they are betrayers who are trying to give the nation and the people over to the criminals and those who support them. They are selling their people and the blood of our people for free, and this is something which we won't allow. Some speak about the political solution only, and some speak about combating terrorism only. This is not precise. The solution must be comprehensive, which includes politics and also combating terrorism, and a third part, which is a social solution. Nobody speaks about the social solution. We have some examples in Homs and Dara. Specifically, the situation has greatly improved because of the social situation, the social factor. People, nationalist people who are nationalists, people who have ethics, have presented initiatives between the state and also between the armed elements and terrorists, and so this led to great results, important results actually. These people don't belong to any parties, they don't have any political programs, they only have nationalist affiliations. Such initiatives are very important. So if we look at the solution in a comprehensive way and we say that there are many parts combating terrorism, politics and the social factor, especially because any crisis in any nation, if it's a normal crime, we must go back to the social roots always. So I'd like to salute those people who were able to make these national achievements according to their own abilities. I know some of them, I met some of them directly, some others I heard about them. However, there are unknown soldiers. We'd like to salute them. We say that we rely very much on their initiatives. After what I said, it seems that there was no one. Some people might think there was no one to hold dialogue with. Although what happened, we will hold dialogue and we will extend our hand always for dialogue. We will hold dialogue with all those who disagree with us in politics, those who were contradictory with us in their stances, without their stances being based upon harming the principles of nationalism. We will hold dialogue with political parties and individuals who didn't sell our country to strangers. We will hold dialogue with those who laid down arms so that the Syrian Arab blood will be in their veins. We will be real partners, real loyal partners to every nationalist person who works for the interests of Syria, for the security and stability and independence of Syria. And so, based upon this and based upon our principles and norms, like the sovereignty of the state and its independent decision-making, and also the principles of the UN Charter and international law, all of this stresses on the sovereignties of the nations and their independence and their territorial integrity and the non-intervention in their internal affairs. And because we believe in the necessity of dialogue between the sons of Syria and the Syrian leadership, and for the sake of bringing about a secure atmosphere once again and restoring stability, the political solution in Syria will be as follows. The first stage, first of all, the countries, regional countries and international countries will be committed to stopping financing and arming and harboring the armed groups. At the same time, the armed groups must stop all the terrorist acts, and this will facilitate the Syrian refugees to come back to their real homes in a secure way. And after that, the military operations by the Syrian armed forces will stop. The Syrian armed forces reserve the right to respond if the security of the state or the citizen or the public institutions or private institutions are subject to any attack. Number two, to find a mechanism that everybody will be committed to the previous element, article, especially controlling borders. Number three, the current government will directly begin with comprehensive contacts with all of the members of Syrian society and community, all the different parties and associations, to hold open dialogue sessions and to hold a dialogue, national dialogue conference whereby all of those parties who want a solution in Syria, all of them can participate, whether they be parties inside Syria or outside Syria. The other stage then, the following stage, is that the current government will call for a national dialogue, comprehensive national dialogue session in order to reach a document which stipulates the territorial integrity and the rejection of terrorism and rejection of meddling in internal affairs. So the first part of the government of calling on the political parties is to decide the nature of this conference or these dialogue sessions which will be held. a national document which holds on to the territorial integrity and rejects terrorism and violence and intervention in our affairs. Such a document will draw the future. Such a charter will draw the future for Syria. The political horizon, the economy of Syria, and also there will be an agreement on new laws for political parties and elections and internal or local administration. Number two, this charter will be subject to referendum, a popular referendum. Number three, a comprehensive government will be formed whereby all components of Syrian society will be represented, and it will take up the task of implementing the different articles of the charter. Number four, the constitution will be subject then to a referendum. After being adopted or ratified, the government will then go ahead with the laws which were agreed upon in the national dialogue sessions in accordance with a new constitution, including an electoral law, and so new parliamentary elections will be held, everything related to the constitution and the laws. We can say if in the dialogue conference laws are agreed to or the constitution is agreed to, then the government will go ahead and issue these laws. Then the third stage, first of all, a new government is formed in accordance with the constitution, which will be formed at that time. Second of all, a general reconciliation conference will be held and amnesty will be issued to all those who were arrested because of the events. However, the rights of the civilians will remain for them. Then further rehabilitation of the infrastructure, reconstruction and compensation for all those who suffered because of the events, with respect to general amnesty, but at the same time providing the rights for the civilians, because the state has the right to give up its own rights. However, it cannot give amnesty when it comes to rights of civilians. However, I believe that if we reach this stage, the amnesty must be a general amnesty, not from the nation, but those who own the rights. And then actually we can reach the reconciliation, a stage of reconciliation when everybody forgives, when everyone forgives everyone, when each person forgives the other person. This is the main perspective for the political solution. As I said, these are only titles, and the government will look into the details, and the government will also lay down the details and further expand on these main items, and it will give a perspective and vision as an initiative. Over the next few days, an initiative will be presented, and all of these stages will be followed up in accordance with the different articles or segments I mentioned. However, let's speak about everything in its place. We are living in the era of fabrication. We are living in the era of false allegations. Not us. However, this is the situation in general. False allegations in contradiction with what is happening, really. So let's correct all of the ideas and all of the terms which are being raised. First of all, with respect to this vision, some people might express their fears, some people might feel concerned, some people might feel that this means we're going back. When it comes to security perspective, I'd like to reassure everyone that with respect to combating terrorism, we will not stop as long as even one terrorist remains. What we began, we will not stop. So anything which we do in this initiative doesn't mean at all that we will take lightly the issue of combating terrorism. On the contrary, the more we go forward in combating terrorism, the more there is a possibility to achieve success with respect to fulfilling this vision. Second of all, this vision If they want to call it an initiative or a vision or ideas, these ideas are directed to anyone who wants dialogue, anyone who wants to see a political solution in the near future in Syria. It is not directed to those who don't want to try. And so we will hear, today, we will hear a lot of rejections from certain sides whom you know, and we told them before, why do you reject something which is not directed to you from the beginning, in order not to waste time? Third, any initiative which is raised from any side or from any figure or any nation is not important. It must be based on the Syrian vision. There is no initiative which takes the place of what we see as a solution for the crisis in Syria, meaning any initiative helps. Any initiative helps what the Syrians do, but it doesn't replace what the Syrians do. So after raising these ideas by the government, any initiative which comes from the outside must be based on these ideas, help these ideas, and we don't need to waste our time or waste the times of others by initiatives which are outside the circle of what I just said. So if we wonder how can the outside foreign initiatives help us, there are two perspectives. The political efforts, and we have combating terrorism. In the political efforts, we don't need assistance. We as Syrians are able to go ahead with a comprehensive, complete political process. Whoever wants to help Syria in a practical, effective, honest way and wants success is capable of focusing on stopping the armed groups and the weapons and the financing from coming into Syria. This is the message for all those who work from the outside, to focus on where they should put their efforts. We don't want anyone to come and say what we should do in our political process. Our country, which is thousands of years old, knows how to manage its own affairs. Number 4, to support the outside initiatives which might help us doesn't mean that we accept the explanation, how these initiatives are explained, if they are not in accordance with our vision. And we don't accept any explanation except if they serve the Syrian interests. And so we speak about the Geneva initiative which Syria supported, but there was one article which was ambiguous, an article related to the transitional phase. It is not explained for one reason, because when we speak about a transitional period, first of all, we wonder, transitional from where to where, what stage to what stage, from what to what, from a free, independent country to a country under occupation, for example, from a country which has a state to a country where there is no state and a situation of complete chaos, or do we go from a national independent decision to handing over this decision to foreigners? Of course, the enemies want the three at the same time. Us, from our perspective, at this current situation, the transitional period is from non-stability to stability. Any other explanation has no meaning. Under a different situation, if there was no crisis, a normal transitional phase would be from a situation to a better situation, and this would be part of a development, a process of development. And with respect to any transitional phase, it must come by Syrian means. So from our perspective, what we are doing, these ideas, from our perspective, they represent the transitional period. Number 5, any initiative which we accepted it because it is based upon sovereignty and the decision of the people. And the initiatives which were raised and which we dealt with are focused on this, on the people and their decisions. So anything which is agreed on in Syria or outside Syria must come based on the decision of the people. So as you noticed, even the charter which could be ratified by the National Dialogue Conference will not pass by without a referendum, because for everything there must be a popular referendum, especially in these difficult circumstances. So anything which we receive from the inside or from the outside, and we said this to everyone with whom we met, it must go by the popular referendum. It won't come by the president, nor the government, nor the dialogue. This represents a guarantee that we take steps which really reflect the consent of the people and the national interest. And if we understand this, if we understand these words, and I think what I said is very clear, very simple, everybody knows, everybody who comes to Syria and leaves Syria knows that Syria accepts advice, however, it doesn't accept dictations. It accepts assistance, however, it doesn't accept oppression. So, based upon all of this, everything which you might hear or which you have heard before, the ideas, the slogans, the points of view, the initiatives, the statements in the media by certain officials, this all is not important. If these slogans are spring slogans, they are just bubbles of soap. So any explanation for any issue which is outside the circle of Syrian sovereignty, for us, this means dreams only. They have the right to dream. They can live in their own dream world. However, they cannot make us live in their world. We will not go ahead with any steps except if it's related to the Syrian people, if it takes into consideration the interests of Syria and the Syrian people. Brothers and sisters, the nation is above everything else. Nothing is above the nation. Syria is above everyone. In the political initiatives, we strengthen Syria, and by defending every bit of soil, we protect Syria. Syrians forgive and they issue amnesty, yes. However, dignity and nationalism are in the veins of the Syrian people, and most of the Syrians rose to confront terrorism. Some of them gave valuable information to the intelligence services so that the Syrian authorities carried their duty in order to prevent terrorist operations which were planned to be launched against the citizens. And some of them also rose against the terrorists and denied them refuge in their own areas or by going out in protest against the terrorists. And they were also martyred during these protests. And some of them also defended shoulder to shoulder with our armed forces against the cities and the suburbs and the infrastructure. We have a lot of examples here. However, I'd like to mention one example in a small village in northern Syria, in the Hasaka, which is the Ras al Ain village. In that village, the youth in that area, which is on the border with Turkey, they defended over many days. They defended and confronted terrorist attacks, repeated terrorist attacks, and were able to force the terrorists who were coming from Turkey to leave. So I would like to salute this village. And some of them also attempted and convinced and forgave by initiatives of national reconciliation on the local level, and this blocked the road to the terrorists and transformed the situation from escalation to calm. These citizens, by their behavior, they reflected a state of awakening, a situation of awakening. It's not enough to stand and only just look and watch and not to run away. When we are not safe in our country, we won't be safe outside our country. The nation is not for those only who live in it. The nation is for those who also defended it. The nation is not those who enjoyed the blessings of it only. And when it was required to stand up for the nation, he wasn't there. It is for those people who answered the call when the nation called them, although many of them suffered a lot under many different situations. However, when we witnessed these problems, they all rose and they said, this is the time to give. And so their giving was without any limits. And some of them were martyred. Their blood fell and took away this false spring, and it protected the people from this trick which was going to achieve success at the beginning. The blood overthrew what the West said was a spring. It was fire. Fire which tried to burn everything it touched by sectarianism and blind hatred and divisions. So it was not a spring except for those who planned for it and tried to implement it, and here they are failing. The blood of these martyrs protected and will protect the nation and the region, and will protect our territorial integrity, and will further enhance our coexistence, and it will further cleanse our society from betrayal, and will prevent falling into the ethical humanitarian trap, will prevent us from falling into the trap for decades. This is the biggest and most important victory. And the nation, when it achieves victory, it doesn't forget those who sacrificed for the nation. And because nation is a right, it will give everybody who has the right, it will give the rights to those who deserve it. So I salute those who own the rights, who deserve to be saluted, the people, the men of the Syrian Arab army. I'd like to salute the generals, the officers. I'd like to salute our officers, our generals, and our heroic soldiers. I'd like to salute our officers, our generals, and our heroic soldiers, all of them who are sacrificing with their blood and sweat for the sake of Syria. They believe Syria is more important than them and what they own. I salute our armed forces who are waging the most brutal types of wars, and these armed forces are determined to bring back stability and security to the people by dispersing terrorism. Our armed forces, which drew the lines of heroics by their cohesion, by their national cohesion and their perseverance. This reflected the same stance of the people, the coexistence and the strength of the people. They preserved the citizen, and the people preserved the army by taking the army in and supporting them. Heroics is for every soldier who fell in the battle, and the heroics is for all and every soldier who took up arms and sacrificed with his blood to complete the mission of those who fell. And I'd also like to salute every citizen who carried out his national duty by standing in support of our armed forces in different ways, according to everyone's own abilities. They are the source of pride for Syria, and history will record their names, because they are writing history with their blood and with their courage. They were, and they still are, the supporters of the people, side by side with those who support our nation. Brothers and sisters, I know, just as you know, that what the country is going through now is difficult and painful, and I feel what most of the people feel. The pain when we lose our beloved and the martyrdom of sons and relatives. The fire of their hatred has targeted everyone, and it entered into the, of course, martyrdom. The feelings of martyrdom have entered everywhere, in all homes, including me. And with respect to the tears of the mothers, these tears will in the end cleanse their sons, and they will be like fire and hell for the killers and the criminals who killed our children. And here they are trying to steal the future of our children, a future of a country a stable country. They want to deny our children a stable country in the future. But Syria, God willing, will be back stronger than it was before. We will not back down and give concessions regarding our principles. We will not give up our rights. And whoever relied on weakening Syria from the inside so that Syria forget the Golan Heights and its occupied territories is mistaken. The Golan Heights is for us, and Palestine is our cause, and we sacrificed a lot, martyrs and blood for all of this, and we will support the resistance against the enemy. Resistance is behavior, not people. Resistance is ideas. It's not concessions and taking advantage of opportunities. And the people and the state who took the burden and responsibility of standing in support of the Palestinian people in their just cause for decades, with everything this stance brought with it, challenges and prices which every Syrian citizen paid in different aspects, pressures and threats. These people and this state cannot for any reason but be in the same position with their Palestinian brothers. So for this reason, any attempt to bring the Palestinians inside the events aims to take the focus away from the real enemy. It's also, they are failed attempts before they even began, because the Palestinians in Syria are carrying out their duty towards their second nation, just like any Syrian. And we in Syria, the people and the state, we take our responsibility of doing what we should do, our duty towards them, towards any Syrian. So we salute every honorable Palestinian inside Syria who lived up to the pledge and appreciated the Syrian stances and also took the burden with the blood and faith like the Syrian people, and didn't deal with Syria like a hotel. When the situation gets worse, they leave. Brothers and sisters, despite everything which was planned for in Syria, and people were involved in this planning, inside and outside, but they won't be able to change what is inside us, because what is inside us is great and strong and solid. Nationalism flows in our veins, and Syria is more valuable than anything else. And what you expressed, your perseverance over the last 2 years towards what is going on, this tells the whole world that Syria cannot collapse. This also shows that the Syrian people cannot be humiliated, and this also shows that challenging and perseverance is part of the Syrian people, which we inherit generation after generation. We were like this and we will remain like this, and hand by hand, despite all of the pains and wounds, we will walk with Syria to a stronger future, a more bright future. We will move forward. We will not be afraid of their bullets. We will not be terrorized by their hatred, because we are the people of righteousness, and Allah always is with righteousness. And Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
That was the Syrian President Bashar al Assad speaking in Damascus, speaking about a solution that he has drawn up. And I'm just going to speak about the rough outline of that solution. He said in stage 1, regional and international countries should be responsible for stopping terrorism in the country, and that armed groups must stop their attacks as well. He said the Syrian army will then stop its operations, but will reserve the right to defend. He said the borders of the country must be secured. All parties must within the country must hold a dialogue, whether coming from inside or outside the country. He said national dialogue must result in a document of sorts which rejects terrorism and meddling by others. He said that also there must be an agreement on new laws, etc. He says once those laws have been drawn up, the new constitution will be put to a referendum. If that is agreed upon, the laws will then be implemented. He said a general amnesty will be upheld through a reconstruction conference in which compensation will be given to those who have lost much in this ongoing crisis. He said that just because the country is ready to do that does not mean the country will not fight terrorism. He said none of that initiative will be accepted by those who this is not directed towards, already previewing the fact that the Syrian National Coalition, quote-unquote, may not accept this. He said this is for those who love their country only. He said any proposal by any side or country is unimportant if it is not accepted by Syrians. He said that Syria does not need help in its political process, but those who want to help Syria must in fact stop terrorists from coming into Syria and wreaking havoc. And he said that Syrians do not want anyone to tell Syrians how to manage their internal political affairs. He also spoke at length about the transitional phase, saying that he wondered what this transitional phase was coming from what to what, essentially. He said that are we to hand over a national government over to foreigners? He said a normal transition would be from the present situation to a better one, not a worse one. And he said that any initiative that Syria has so far accepted has been one that respects Syrian sovereignty. At the end, he said he saluted those people who have defended Syria, whether regular citizens or those who work against terrorists entering from Syria, especially from the Turkish side. And he also saluted the army officers fighting to protect the nation. Again, that was the Syrian President, Bashar al Assad, speaking there live in Damascus about a political solution to the situation in Syria. I'll be back in about 3 minutes' time with the world news in full. Stay with Press TV.